50 megawatts. That is not a technical specification. That is a commitment. 50 megawatts of power, drawn continuously, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, before a single dollar of revenue exists. $500 million committed. A signed contract from one of the 5 largest cloud providers on the planet. 50 megawatts of power allocated from a substation 12 miles from your site. 18 months to first revenue. The AI boom is the most obvious infrastructure play of the decade. Demand for compute is vertical. Every major corporation on Earth is racing to train models, run inference, and process data at scales that did not exist 24 months ago. The market is there. The customer is signed. The capital is deployed. In the next 540 days, you are going to find out what nobody put in the deck. The clock starts now. Months 1 and 2. Ground breaks. The site is a former industrial facility on the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix checks every box. Low land cost, established fiber routes, proximity to a major transmission substation, and a state government actively courting data center investment with a 10-year property tax abatement. 200 workers on site, steel frame rising. Cost to date, $43 million in construction, site preparation and permits. 200 workers, $43 million in the ground. That is $215,000 per worker in costs burned, before a single server is switched on. And then, week 6, the first number nobody showed you. Copper. A 50 megawatt data center requires between 1,300 and 1,600 tons of copper across power distribution, busways, and cable trays. Not fiber, copper. In January of 2023, copper was trading at $3.90 per pound. By March, it had crossed $4.15. Your materials budget, built on a December estimate, is already $2.3 million short. That is not a problem yet. That is a signal. The signal arrives in the same week as the structural steel confirmation and the permitting approval. It gets filed. The project moves. Months 3 and 4. The number that controls everything. Before anything else, you need to understand the one metric that determines whether this business works. Think of a data center like a city. Every building in that city uses electricity. Now imagine one building in that city consumes as much power as every other building combined and runs at maximum capacity 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, with zero tolerance for outages. That is one row of AI servers. The metric that controls this business is called PUE, Power Usage Effectiveness. For every watt that reaches your servers, how many additional watts do you consume in cooling, lighting, and infrastructure? A PUE of 2.0, you pay double for every unit of compute. A PUE of 1.2, world-class, costs 20 additional cents per watt. That difference is worth $6 million per year at 50 megawatts, 6 cents per kilowatt hour. Times 50 megawatts, times 8,760 hours, $26.3 million per year in raw electricity, before a single server processes a single query, before debt service, before staff, before any return on the $500 million in concrete. And in month 4, the utility calls. Months 5 and 6, the utility call. The Maricopa County substation that feeds your site can deliver your full 50 megawatts, just not on schedule. The grid capacity upgrade, the infrastructure expansion that would bring your full allocation online, is now projected to complete in the third quarter of 2024. Not the first, not the second, the third quarter of 2024. That is 9 months past your customer delivery date. 3 options. You have 72 hours to choose. Option 1, delay the customer, renegotiate the delivery date. Your contract contains a penalty clause. $2.4 million per month of delay beyond the agreed commissioning date. Option 2, bridge with on-site diesel generation. Capital cost, $11 million. And an immediate sustainability violation. Your customer's contract prohibits diesel as primary power. Their net zero commitments are contractually binding. Option 3, launch at reduced capacity. 30 megawatts, what the grid can deliver today. Phase the remaining 20 megawatts when the substation upgrade completes. Option 3 means launching at 60% of design capacity. Annual revenue at 60%. $54 million instead of $90 million. Debt service was sized for $90 million. It does not change. You choose option 3. 60% of capacity, 40% of the revenue, 100% of the debt service. The math does not close, and it never will. That decision, made in a conference room in Phoenix in May of 2023, is the point of no return, not the potential default, not the missed milestone. This moment. From here, the entire model can only recover if the remaining 20 megawatts comes online exactly on the utility's revised schedule. It will not. Months 7 through 9. The GPU queue. Your hyperscale customer needs to fill the facility with compute. They placed an order for 10,000 graphics processing units in 2022. Delivery was committed for the third quarter of 2023. By mid-2023, the GPU allocation queue for next-generation chips extends to mid-2024. Your customer is not a new customer, but their delivery has been pushed from the third quarter of 2023 to the first quarter of 2024. Chipmaker capacity is constrained. The timeline cannot be met. The facility is partially ready. The servers are not. You are paying interest on $500 million in construction debt for a facility running at 11% utilization. Operating costs are structural. They do not fall with utilization. Staff is deployed. Cooling runs at full capacity whether racks are full or empty. Electricity does not adjust. Month 9 cumulative. $31 million in interest and operating expense deployed. Revenue generated, $4.2 million. The gap in 9 months, $26.8 million. That is not a crisis. That is the ramp-up gap. The period between capital commitment and revenue normalization that exists in every large infrastructure project in history. The operators who survive finance for it. The operators who fail finance for the pro forma. Here is the detail the pro forma never shows. 2024 was the most commercially active year in AI infrastructure history. The Phoenix facility, in operation during the best year the sector had ever seen, never exceeded 44% capacity. The problem was not demand. Demand was vertical. The problem was the timeline. Months 10 through 12, the cooling redesign. The latest generation of iGPU generates 700 watts of thermal load per unit. Your original cooling specification, written in 2022, was engineered for the previous generation chip, which generates 400 watts per unit. The new model was not yet in mass production when your design was finalized. By the time it was, the construction drawings were already submitted. The thermal load per rack has increased by 75% above design specifications. Air cooling, your installed system, cannot handle it at density. Direct liquid cooling is required. Coolant distribution units, rear door heat exchangers, and a complete retrofit of the hot aisle containment in 40% of your planned racks. Capital cost, $14.7 million. Timeline, 16 weeks. During those 16 weeks, every affected rack is non-revenue generating while the retrofit is completed. The engineering team flagged this in March. Written report. Capital request deferred in April. Pending GPU delivery confirmation. Customer confirmed in September. Retrofit began in November. 7 months between the signal and the response. $14.7 million. Always going to be spent. Just spent late, at emergency contractor rates instead of planned procurement. $14.7 million. In pipes, coolant, and heat exchangers. That is the cost of not reading an engineering report in March. All of this, the copper overrun, the utility delay, the GPU queue, the cooling redesign, was visible in the public data before ground broke. Copper price trend, published daily. Utility capacity constraints, in their quarterly filings. GPU delivery queue, in every industry conference from January 2023. Every signal was visible. Every signal was filed and moved past. That is what buried economics means. Months 13 through 18. The reckoning. January 2024, month 13. Monthly revenue, $3.1 million. Monthly debt service, $4.6 million. Monthly operating expense, $2.2 million. Monthly net cash position, negative $3.7 million. Negative $3.7 million per month. That is the equivalent of 74 families earning the median American household income, consumed every month by a building that is partially operational, partially empty, and fully indebted. The hyperscale customer is compliant, but their expansion pipeline has moved to a competitor facility in Dallas, one that secured a direct utility interconnection and launched at 93% capacity on day 1. Month 15, the Maricopa County substation upgrade is delayed again. First quarter of 2025 now, the utility cites permitting complications on a transformer installation. Month 18, the board convenes. The facility has never exceeded 44% capacity. The pro forma assumed 90% by month 12. 3 paths: refinance the construction debt, bring in a co-investor at a diluted equity stake, or sell the asset at a discount to replacement cost. The asset is operational. It has a signed contract. It will reach full capacity. The question is whether the capital structure survives long enough to get there. Time to calculate what the calendar said versus what the deck showed. The deck, $90 million in annual revenue by month 12. EBITDA margin of 50%. Payback on equity, 11 years. The calendar delivered something different. Revenue at month 18, $37 million annualized. EBITDA, $14 million. Cash burn against debt service, -$9 million per year. The gap, power at 60% instead of 100, $33 million in lost revenue. GPU delay across 92 racks, $11 million foregone. Cooling retrofit amortized, $2.4 million per year. Copper overrun, $2.3 million in year 1. Total shortfall versus pro forma, $46 million per year. Total capital above budget, $61.4 million. The risk-free rate on a United States Treasury bond in 2023 was approximately 5.4%. The data center, at $14 million in EBITDA on $500 million in construction cost, is generating a 2.8% return on invested capital. 2.8, 5.4. The operator is taking on construction risk, power grid risk, GPU supply chain risk, and customer concentration risk, to generate roughly half the return of a government bond. He is not running an infrastructure business. He is paying for the privilege of running one. Scenario 1. The disciplined regional operator. 25 megawatts. Power sourced from a substation with verified spare capacity. Confirmed in writing before ground breaks. Revenue at 80% utilization. $27 million per year. Net cash positive from month 8. Slow. Solvent. Scenario 2. The hyperscale concession, built correctly. 50 megawatts, phased in 2 tranches. Second tranche committed only after the substation upgrade is confirmed operational, not promised. GPU penalty clause structured against the customer, not only the operator. EBITDA, at full operation, $43 million per year. Payback, 13 years. The difference between Scenario 2 and what happened in Phoenix is not the market, not the AI boom, and not the capital. It is whether the timeline in the deck matched the timeline in the world. The data center doesn't sell computing power. It sells scarcity of power, of cooling, of fiber, of floor space, of the precise 18 months between when a hyperscaler signs a contract and when a competitor breaks ground. The moment you stop pricing the risk that scarcity resolves, you are no longer in the infrastructure business. You are in the optimism business. In 2025, hundreds of billions were committed to new data center construction across North America. Every megawatt of scarcity your pro forma depends on. They are building it away. The window has a construction timeline. The calendar always reveals what the deck concealed. And right now, somewhere, a deck is being written for a project that will break ground next quarter. The calendar already knows the outcome. The question is whether the people signing the checks are willing to read it. That is not a warning. That is the math.